thanks so much for stopping by and checking out this sermon video. Just want to encourage you as you listen to this sermon that this is just a supplement to your faith, to your walk with Jesus. Don't rely on this solely. I'd just encourage you to get involved in a local church if you already are not. If you are looking for a local church, I'd encourage you to check out Centerpoint Church. We'd love to see you be a part of our community. We have different groups that meet as well throughout the week, Bible studies that you can be a part of. As well, maybe it's on your heart that you'd like to help us in some way financially. A lot of man hours go into making our videos, into our production on Sunday morning. And if that's on your heart, check out centerpointchurch.ca and you can see how you could help us as well. You can check out our Facebook page, Centerpoint Church, like and follow us.
Titled this How Long? And we're going to read Psalm 13, and we're going to start with the first 4 verses, and then we're going to get a little deeper. But before we go any further, I'd just like to open with a word of prayer. And if there's a lot of glare, somebody will have to dim the lights a little bit because I don't have much to absorb light. So I'll leave that up to somebody who's better with lighting than I am. But let's open with a word of prayer and then look at Psalm 13. Heavenly Father, we just come to you this morning. We ask you to quiet our hearts. Just speak through me this morning. I hope that what I've prepared here this morning, my testimony here this morning, will be an encouragement to others, that we can understand that even though we're waiting, even though we don't understand, that you're still there. We just pray that you be with us here this morning. Guide me, open our hearts, and just help us to hear you speak this morning. In your name we pray. Amen. So, I've got Psalm 13 here on my phone because it's bigger and I never know what the lighting is going to be like, and my eyes are getting to the point where it's a job to read small print in my Bible. So, Psalm 13, the first 4 verses say, "How long, Lord, will you forget me forever?" It's an encouraging way to start. How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day and night have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. I should have put that up first, I guess. But there it is. So we're gonna kind of dive into this, and you're gonna have to bear with me. This is going to be a few stories, and the reason I'm telling these is because I think through that I can hopefully give encouragement to those of you who may be sitting here this morning saying, "How long?" I'm with you. I'm in the middle of a how long, and it's been somewhere around 6 months, and I'll explain that. But have you ever been in that situation? And if you haven't, some of you are young enough that you may not have been there yet, but you will be at some point in your life. I'm what they call middle-aged, but only if I plan to live as long as my grandmother, who passed away a few months ago at 102. I don't think I'm going to last that long, to be honest. So I'm old enough that I've been through a few things, and what I'm going to speak on now, and I don't want to minimize anybody else's situation, because a lot of you are probably dealing with stuff a lot harder than what I'm dealing with. But I'm hoping through this that you can kind of see, looking back over my life, I can see where God's hand has been there and has worked even when I didn't want him to, even when I thought I knew better or didn't think that he was there or that he had any control over the situation, or I didn't even want him to have control over the situation, yet he was still there. And in one instance, it was almost immediate that I knew. In another instant, it was a day later. I'm in the middle of one now that's been 6 months plus, but I don't know where it's going. And here's why I can have faith. Here's why I can survive this. So we look at David, and we all remember David. This will be fairly personal. David went through a lot more than I ever faced, but it's really interesting when you look at poor David. We all remember him from this, him and Goliath. He was only a teenager when this happened. He wasn't technically of fighting age, which was about 20 years old in Israel. So he was, they speculate, somewhere around 16 years old or thereabouts when he went and he fought Goliath. And he became a national hero to the point that he ended up in Saul's service. He was married to the king's daughter. Talk about being in with the right crowd. He was extremely successful. It talks in Samuel about everything he did. He had success in it. Every battle that he went into, he was successful in that battle. And, I mean, he wasn't a very old man at this point. It wasn't like he'd lived a lot of life. All he'd ever really known was success. It started out with this as a teenager, which would give you, I would think, a pretty big ego. I'm not sure what he went through, but he went very quickly from hero to a man on the run. And he's crying out to the Lord here, how long? How long am I going to be doing this? How long until you're going to hear me? And what did I, you know, in some ways you can almost hear it through this. And this is something that I've kind of battled with myself. Like, what did I do to deserve what I'm facing? Why am I going through this? David was there in the king's court, and only a matter of days later, he was on the run, no food. Basically, what he was wearing was all he had, and striving for his life, knowing that not only was the king and the king's men after him, but there were people, if somebody saw him walking down the street, word would get back that he was in that area. So he had to sneak around. He had to hide out in enemy territory. And you can hear it in this psalm. He's crying out, why is this happening to me? Why do I have to deal with this? How long are you going to leave me here? Why can't I feel you? Why can't I hear your voice? Why are you just abandoning me to my enemies? They're laughing over me. They're laughing at me. They're striving to kill me. And how long are you going to be silent and absent? So I want to try to take you through. They say the best sermons are lived, not preached. And I'm going to take you through a couple of things just that I've dealt with. This is where I am right now. Yes, I'm a little overwhelmed and can't take it anymore. Why do you ask? Except I don't have that much hair. I was, and I don't want this to be political, and I won't go into a lot of detail, but some of you may know that Montague was part of an amalgamation back last year, about a little over a year ago now. I was in favor of that. A lot of the people who ended up on council were opposed to it. I won't say sides or not going to get into details, but I was let go. Basically, I was fired last May. I'd been there 12 years. Basically, I've been a CAO, a Chief Administrative Officer, which is a fancy term for town manager, for 17 years. So the better part of my working life, this is what I've done. And I've, done everything I could to be good at it. I've tried to, be fair. I've tried to work well. In Montague, we managed to lower tax rates and pay down debt and did $10 million worth of infrastructure, and things were going great. But as I looked into the future, I could see that that's our demographics, the way our aging population and everything, this isn't going to last, and we need to take some steps. And it's not just Montague, it's Georgetown and Cardigan and some of these other areas that we're seeing. Both Georgetown and Cardigan had like a 30% decrease in population in the last 10 years, and it was going to get that much worse in the next 10 because the population's just getting older and young people are moving out. There isn't as many of them. So I was working for what I thought was a great thing, what I thought would, help the community, and I was, striving towards this, but in the back of my head, I'm thinking now, maybe I wasn't hearing. Change does not come easy. Nobody really likes change. And through all that, last May, I was made an offer last Christmas, about just about a year ago, to accept a CAO position. The problem was there was a document written up that said this is how it has to be done. When the amalgamation happens, here's how it has to be done. When the offer was made to me, I didn't think it was in line with that document. So I had to either decide I'm going to do something, and as the first act, do something that I'm pretty sure isn't legal by my reading, or I'm going to have to say no to that and try to find another position within the organization. 6 months after that, it got to the point where basically I was released. So not to dwell on that, but it was kind of hard to take, thinking I'm working towards something good, I'm doing what I think is right, I stood on my principles and turned down an offer that I didn't think was right, and now I've been kicked to the curb. And, you know, you could get really depressed, really angry, and I've been there. Believe me, any of you who've gone through something, you know, as drastic as being fired or any major change in life, it's pretty easy to get angry. It's pretty easy to get depressed. I've been all of the above. There's days when I just rave at nobody. I'm in a truck somewhere or something, and I'm just talking to hear myself talk. But I vent to get it out, I guess. And then I say, how long? Because I know in the background God is there. I don't know why it's happening, but I know He's there. And I want to explain why it's like that. Why I have this, my parents were, you know, when this happened to me, of course, they're upset. And I'm blaming them for giving me faith. I grew up, I was lucky enough, I had two Christian parents, and I've learned to appreciate how important that is in the lives of your kids. You don't appreciate it as a teenager, and you don't appreciate it as a young person, but as I grew and matured, I realized how blessed I was to have parents who loved Christ and followed Him. So I blame them for having this faith, but I'm asking all the questions that many of you have probably asked. What do I need to learn through this? First of all, why did it happen? But through that, is there something that I need to take from this? Is this happening for a reason? What is the reason? Well, obviously, it must happen for a reason. What's the reason, and what do I need to learn from it? But I can't answer that question right now. I don't know. And yet, it's strange to be, I remember as a kid, people saying, what do you want to be when you grow up? And now I'm asking myself that question. What do I want to be when I grow up? Because I've got so many options out there, and my wife and I have been praying, not that, you know, that this situation would go away or that something would, it's closed the doors. And that's the situation we're in, because I've got so many things that I'm looking at, and I don't know which one's the right one. I don't know where God wants me. So it's not, you know, show me what you want me to do, as much as we are kind of praying that. We're praying more, show us what you don't want us to do. And if it means moving, which we really don't want to do, then show us that that's where you want us. Close the doors, leave that open as the option that needs to happen. Sometimes I wonder, you know, is this just for me to realize, you know, that I shouldn't be clinging on to the things that I'm clinging to, my house, my property, my stuff. Because a lot of times we get caught up in that's who we are, it's our stuff, you know. And I love my house and my property. We bought 20 acres and built our house, and we absolutely love it there. But is that why this is happening? Is that what's happening in the background, that I need to release that? I need to realize that God is more than my property or my house or my family or my job or the status that comes with that or the paycheck that comes with that or all the other things. So for the past 6 months, I spent a couple of months lobster fishing, which I hate. I don't know if any of you have ever lobster fished. I'm not a good sailor. And I used the patch. If it was giving nasty, I used the patch. And one day I got caught with, we weren't going to go out, and then we did. And I spent a very long Friday. I think the captain took pity on me and came in at about 3 o'clock that afternoon. We'd been out since 9. We were late getting out. We were usually out at 5 in the morning. But we came in at 3, and as he said, you're probably happy to be going to shore, and I was pretty sure I'd thrown up a kidney at that point, and I said, yes, going in would be good. So, and then I've been slinging feed. I've been working with Cardigan Feed Services. I spent 3 weeks driving tractor trailer to Truro, which I did, and that kind of segues into why do I have this weird, and it bothers, you know, some people when I talk to them. They like, you need to do something about this. You need, and I am. I mean, I'm trying to negotiate a settlement, and we're working through that. But through it all, I'm not bitter or angry. And I guess it's because I know God is there. Somewhere, I know He's there. And someday, I hope, whether it's here or whether it's in heaven, maybe it'll be in heaven when I finally go, oh, now I get it. So here's why I have that. And I'm going to just tell a couple of stories. This is Route 6. It's in the state of Maine, and I used to drive tractor trailer. When I got out of university, put myself through university running heavy equipment, got out of university, started driving tractor trailer, and drove for about 6 years. One dark and stormy night, only it wasn't really raining that hard, but I was headed down Route 6, and that's just an idea. That's actually a screenshot of Route 6. And you can see there isn't much of a shoulder there. There isn't much of a road there to speak of. They've done a lot of work to this in the last 20 years, and it's much better now, but that's what sections of it look like, and that's what about all of it looked like that night. And I was going down Route 6. It was a Friday night. I'd been running hard all week, and like most truck drivers, I was tired, I was cranky, and I just wanted to get to Costigan so I could get turned in and get some sleep before I got up the next morning and unloaded at 5:30 because that's when the mill opened. It was somewhere midnight-ish, and it was as black a night as you can picture. There was no stars, overcast, no moon, nothing, no street lights, as you can probably tell. And I'm cooking down this road at about 55 miles an hour, 90 kilometers an hour for those of you who are millennials and above. So I'm going 90 kilometers an hour, and I'm headed up this hill. I don't know if this is the actual hill, but it was similar to this. But it was a little bit of a grade, but I was still coasting pretty good. And had the lights on high beam so that I could see what I could of the road. And somewhere before I crested that hill, my lights went poof, and they were gone. And all I had was the running lights, the orange lights on the top of the cab and on the corners of the front of the truck. I kept a flashlight beside me, tucked in a little, and I grabbed that, stuck it out the window, and I was driving up the road with a 5-cell flashlight as a headlight, slowing down, trying to steer, downshift, and holding a light out the window at the same time, and it was all kind of very interesting. And I never saw the hand of God in this. Even, you know, as you can tell, there isn't much of a shoulder, and there's almost nowhere. I'm loaded. I'm about 112,000 pounds gross weight. You don't pull off the side of the road here at that weight. You end up in the ditch if you do that because it just gives way. The place right up in front of me, as I'm going up this grade, there's a turn-off, a little pull-off area right in front of me. Just about the time I'm getting slowed down enough that I can pull off, there's a pull-off area. And I pull into that, and I am fuming, just ragged, ugly, pounding the steering wheel, just shaking. I am so mad. Why is this happening to me? I am tired. It is late. It is the end of the week. I just want to get to Costigan. It's only like an hour more down the road. I just want to get there and go to sleep. I don't have time for this. I'm too tired for this. And I have no idea why I just lost my headlights on the darkest night I can possibly imagine. Park that for a minute. That's Route 6. March 20th, this is the Clifton General Store. That's what it looks like today, or according to Google. That's what it looked like in 1997, March 20th, 1997, and I'll tell you why I know that date. I was driving again, headed down to Costigan, took a different route, went down Route 9 this time, because it was given a really nasty night. Route 6 is not a good night, so any of you who have ever been down the airline, down Route 9 towards Bangor, it's a very narrow road, reminds you very much of Route 6, except that they did do some sections that were a little wider. I get in over the worst hill, which is early in the road. 15 minutes in, it's about an hour and a half drive. I get about 15 minutes in, get in over Day Hill, which is this big, long, steep hill. And when I broke in over the other side, it took to snowing. And it snowed. And it snowed hard. And all I could think was, okay, about halfway down, I've got the airline diner, they've got a big parking lot, I'll get off the road because this isn't fit to be driving. When I got to the airline diner and rounded the corner and could see it, all I could see was taillights. It was full of trucks, and I thought, there is no way I can get off the road. So I've got one option, and that's either two options, park on the road or go. And I thought, okay, here we go. I know my truck, I know I'm running really good tires, and I'm loaded, once again, to the gunnels. I'm heavy, I've got pretty good traction, and I'm making a run for this hill to get up by. On the way down to the Clifton General Store, I was thinking pulling into the airline diner because I'm hungry, it's late, I just want to get off. I'll get a little bite to eat and a coffee, and I'll call it a night. This is about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, the other side of the airline diner. I passed 2 tractor trailers stuck on hills on my way down here. It was snowing that hard that they spun out, couldn't get up the hill. I don't know whether they weren't driving as fast as I was, or whether they didn't have as good of tires, or what the deal. It probably weren't loaded as heavy. But all I could think, I was looking at my watch, and I'm thinking, if I go hard, even though it's crappy weather, I can make the Clifton General Store, because I knew that road like the back of my hand. I'd driven it enough, I can still see it, and I can drive it in my head. You know every corner when you're going down, when you drive these things on a regular basis, and I was. So I knew I got 45 minutes to get to the Clifton General Store, and it's about 45 minutes away. And I thought, I'm going to be a few minutes one way or the other, but I think I can make it. And if I can get there, I can get something to eat, and I can get a coffee, and I can at least have something in my stomach before I lay down that night. Once again, it's relatively late. I'm running down, and I'm thinking they close at 10 o'clock at night. So I'm thinking that's 11 Canadian time, because they're an hour behind us in Maine, and I'm thinking if I just drive hard, I'm going to get there, and it's going to be about 11 o'clock my time, give or take. But I think I can do it. So I spin up over the hills, and I slide down over the other side, and it was a luge run down Route 9 that night in a tractor trailer, once again, way too heavy, and you're on the edge of adhesion all the time, just guessing how fast I can drive. And I could feel the truck breaking free up the hills, and I'd downshift so that she wouldn't spin, just trying to keep the power to the truck so that it wouldn't break free going up the hill, because I knew if it did, I was done. Locking power dividers in, which is basically like four-wheel drive, up the hill, but you can't do it down the hill because you can't steer on the other one that's locked in. So I was using every trick I knew to get to the Clifton General Store. And I got there. As you can see, this road's pretty good. Well, when I broke out of the really nasty section of Route 9, the plow truck had been out. And he was on this road, plowing this road. And I thought, fantastic, this is great, because now I can actually make a little better time. I'm not driving in 6 or 8 inches of snow. I'm actually driving on relatively clear road, and he's been plowing. And when I rounded the corner and could see this up ahead, which you can see half a mile ahead of you, which is how many kilometers? 0.8 kilometers, something like that. I don't know. When I could see this up ahead of me, then it struck me, he's plowed the drive section of the road, but not the shoulder. And the parking lot isn't paved, or isn't plowed. So I've got 2 feet of snow on the right-hand side, and that whole parking lot is full of snow, and I got 2 feet of snow to go through to get into that parking lot. And again, I'm fuming, because all I can think is, if I pull off the road, I'm done. There's no way I can stop there and get a coffee and get something to eat and still get out of there. I'm going to be stuck. If I pull in there, I'm done. And I looked at my watch, and it was 5 minutes to 11 as I went by there. And I was just fuming, because all I could think of is, I've driven the wheels off this thing, white-knuckled on the steering wheel to get here, and now I can't stop. And I went to Costigan, still angry, 20 minutes up the road or better, still just fuming. And turned in that night, still fuming, because I didn't get my coffee and I didn't get anything to eat. And I was ugly and angry, and it was late, and I was tired. And yet, I found out the next day maybe why I hadn't stopped. And this is where it gets really personal, and this is why I have kind of gone beyond getting upset when things happen. I've had times when I get flat tires that I didn't have time for a flat tire. I get in traffic when I don't have time for traffic. I've had times when things have happened that I didn't expect and didn't want, and every time, Route 6 and the Clifton Country Store, which at the time was the Clifton General Store, they come back to me. And I'll explain why. Now, I have no idea why some things happen. I've had things happen in my life. I have no idea why they happen. I know there's a lot of times that things happen that I caused. It was through my own stupidity. It was through my own will, doing things that I either shouldn't have been doing that caused it, or doing things that I should have done that I didn't do that caused that. But there are some things that I just don't know. And David, must have been questioning a lot of times in a much bigger way than I ever have or ever was. Why is this happening to me? How long, Lord? How long are you going to leave me here? Why is this happening to me now? For those of you who are in a relationship, you may be able to appreciate this. For those of you who aren't in a relationship, you may be able to appreciate this too. I dated some sweethearts. As a teenager, my parents gave up on me because as a 25-year-old, all the rest of my siblings, I've got 3 older siblings, they were all married by the time they were 21. They all had kids by the time they were 22. Actually, my brother was 21, I guess, when he got married, and he had a child when he was married because she had had a child, and her husband was killed in an accident, and he ended up marrying her. So they were all married and had kids at 21, and at 25, I didn't even know what I was going to do, and they just gave up on me. And I asked a girl out. She was my breakfast waitress, and I went to the same restaurant every Sunday morning, had breakfast, and then went to church with my parents. And I can remember as clear as this, if it was yesterday, I went to the restaurant, had breakfast, the whole time thinking, I should ask her out. I should ask her out. But she was way out of my league. She's far too good looking. I was a goofball at the time, still am, but that's beside the point. I'm older now, so I can get away with it. Left there, went home on the motorcycle, went in my parents. I usually went to church with my parents, and thought, for once, man, just get some nerve, ask her out. And I did. I went back down, as embarrassing as it was, knocked on the door, asked if I could talk to her. She came out. I asked her out. That afternoon, we went for a drive, and 2 or 3 hours into that, it went through my head, this girl's just crazy enough, I want to marry her. And that was over 24 years ago. But it seemed, I kept wondering, what's going on? Why, I'm dating these girls, and most of them are, in fact, all of them are sweethearts. They all came with, like all of us, with our issues, but they were sweethearts. And I kept thinking, what's wrong with me? Why can't I find somebody? Why doesn't it feel right? And yet at 25, I finally found that person. So if you're looking and you're wondering, don't give up hope. I still think that God's hand was in that, and he slapped me that day in my parents' garage and said, go ask her out. And I did. And that's been over 24 years ago. We were married 14 months to the day after our first date, and it was a whirlwind romance, and still is. And so I can see God's hand in that. I could see God's hand in some of these other ones. So Route 6. If you remember, I'm on the side of the road, fuming, pounding on the steering wheel, probably thinking and maybe even saying some things that are not appropriate, and trying to figure out how I get to Costigan with no lights. And while I'm sitting on the side of the road, a truck comes in over the hill. And you'll bear with me as I go through this. Every time I tell this story, and I've told it a few times, some of you might have even heard it somewhere. Every time I tell this, it chokes me up. Truck comes in over the hill, grabs the CB, and I hear crackling across my CB, "You okay there on the side?" And I got my CB and put on my happy face and went, "Yep, I just lost my lights." And his reply back was probably just as well. "There's a great big one just in over the hill on your side of the road." And by that, he meant a moose. And if you'd have kicked me in the stomach, it wouldn't have hit me any harder. I bowed my head and said, "Lord, please forgive me for being such an idiot. I can't see your hand working in my life. I didn't even want it working in my life. And yet it was still there. And I believe to this day that he snapped his fingers or whatever he did and put my lights out so that I wouldn't crest that hill at 55 miles an hour and have to face a moose on my side of the road. There is nowhere to go at 110,000 pounds with a moose on your side of the road. I have no idea what would have come out of that. Maybe nothing. But when he said that, it was as if you'd kicked me in the stomach. And I couldn't believe how narrow-sighted and how little faith I had that things sometimes happen for a reason. I dropped the dash, pushed the breaker. I knew where the breakers were because it was an old International, and you got to know where the breakers are in those. Snapped the breaker, the lights came back on, and I never had the issue again. Maybe it was just luck, but I don't believe so. I went by the Clifton General Store at 5 minutes to 11 Canadian time, 5 minutes to 10 American time, fuming. This was a matter of a year, year and a half later, 2 years later maybe, and it was March 20th, 1997. Now, I didn't remember that date. I actually Googled it to find that date. And the reason I can find that date is because just before closing time on March 20th, 1997, 3 guys robbed this store and shot the owner 6 times. He survived, but he was paralyzed from the waist down, and he had never regained use of his left arm. And when I woke up in Costigan the next morning, I turned on the radio, and almost the first thing I heard was that the general store in Clifton had been robbed the night before, and the owner had been shot 6 times. And once again, it was just like I get kicked in the stomach. I lost my wind, and I sat there going, I am such an idiot. Why can't I believe that when things don't work the way I think they should, the way I want them to, why can't I accept the fact that maybe there's more going on than I'm privy to? I don't know, once again. If I'd have pulled off the road, I don't know what would have happened. Maybe I'd have been behind it. But at 5 minutes to 10 American time, that store was being robbed because they went just before closing time on purpose. And whatever happened, the owner ended up shot 6 times. And I'd have either been in the middle of it, just ahead of it, or just behind it. I've questioned time and time again since then, in the preceding 20-some years. You know, was it all just chance? Because a lot of people tell you, oh, it's just fate, or it's just chance, or it's just whatever. I don't believe that for a minute. I've seen it on Route 6 immediately. I mean, I just got off the side of the road, and then I knew why it happened. It took a day. This was the next morning when I got up. This is what I heard. And I was just dumbfounded that this could happen. And since then, I have kind of, it's not that I don't get upset. I still don't like being stuck in traffic. I still don't like it when things don't go my way. I want to fight against that, but sometimes I have to just take a breath and go, okay, God, I don't know why, don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to have enough faith that this is why it's happening. The end of this is what I want you to focus on. He's crying out, how long, Lord, will you forget me forever? Which is a really odd way to start a psalm. I mean, he's in anguish. But at the end of this, he says, you know, regardless of all this stuff, my enemies are rejoicing over me. They'll rejoice when I fall. They're laughing at me. I'm the joke of the town. But I will trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. And I guess I'm old enough looking back over my life. And some of you are older than I am and probably have more experience in this than I do. Some of you are younger, and if you, as I said, unfortunately, wish I could be all sunny and roses, but if you haven't been there, folks, brace your feet, because it's probably going to happen. But I hope when it happens that you can have faith that sometimes we can't see the whole picture. Sometimes we don't know why things happen the way they do. Sometimes it's just as well. I can look back and say that God has been there for me. Even when I didn't see it, even when sometimes I didn't want it. And if you follow him, he will do that for you. I'm supposed to call Zach up as I'm wrapping up. I'm wrapping up, Zach. I told him when I was walking off stage if that would be his cue. So I guess through this, and I hope I haven't bored you here this morning with some of the stories of my life, but I'm now in that situation. I'm still saying how long. It's been 6 months since I lost my job. I don't know what it is God wants me to do next. I have no idea where I'm supposed to be going. I've got resumes out in 3 or 4 different places, and some of them are not even in PEI, and in some ways I'm terrified that I might actually get accepted to go somewhere else because I really don't want to go anywhere else. But I know that whatever happens, God's got me. You know, even there's no guarantees that things are going to work out well. There's no guarantee that I'll get a job again that compares to what I had. I'm actually really enjoying what I'm doing. Oddly enough, I kind of enjoyed. I don't like lobster fishing because I don't like the water. I'm not a good sailor, but I got to spend time with 3 guys on a boat whose sum total ages were mine. The captain and the first mate and the captain's younger brother, if they were all on the boat, they were my age. So it was really cool to be aboard that boat with guys that were just starting out and just to spend time with them and have fun with them and work our guts out, but just to be there with them. You know, I remember different times telling them, you know, boys, there's worse places to be on a Monday morning than right here, right now, because the sun would just be breaking over the horizon. There was days when it was flat calm, and it was absolutely gorgeous. And I thought, you know, this isn't all bad. It's seeing it for what it is. And I really enjoyed my time there. I'm actually really enjoying slinging feed and drying feed and driving truck and getting back to some of my routes when I'm hoping I don't end up on Route 6 or Route 9, but I probably will, because every time I ever said never in my life, I ended up back there again. But I'm hoping through this, through these stories, that when you face those things, you can look and say, I don't understand it. You can cry out to God, and he hears you. You know, David's crying out, how long will you be silent? How long am I going to be here? Please let me know you're there. I'm here to tell you that he's there, even if you don't think he is, even if you don't want him to be. He's still there. And if you're following him, have faith in the fact that he's there and he will get you through it. Whatever it is, whatever happens, he's still there on the other side of it. What happens in my life from here on out, what I get to be when I grow up, I don't know. But I'm kind of interested to see where we're going. It's always been the adventure, and I've kind of looked at life that way, and I guess I'm back there again. I was pretty comfortable, pretty cocky and confident in where I was, and now it's like I'm back, and I'm out of my comfort zone. I'm out of my being, and I'm back basically totally reliant on God and asking him to take me where he needs me, where he wants me. Whatever it is, I'm just relying on him. I like this quote. Faith is a bridge between where I am and the place God is taking me. I don't know how long that'll be. And when I read this, was reading through my Bible, and when I went by this psalm and read it, all I could think of is, I'm right there. How long? But in the end, I know God has been good to me. He's done it in the past, and because I can look back and see where he's done it, I know that he'll be there in the future. I hope this has been an encouragement for some of you, as depressing as it may be, to think that you got to deal with it. Sometimes you do. Life is like that. But don't ever think that God has abandoned you. If you're living in his will, he is there for you. He will take you through. It may not be what you thought. It may not be what you want. But if you keep following him, he will see you to the other side to get you, the other side of that bridge, where he wants you to be. I'm just going to close with a word of prayer, and then I guess Zach or the rest of the band or somebody will take it from there. Heavenly Father, we just again thank you for this opportunity to be out here this morning. I just hope that through my ramblings here this morning, through looking at David, at your word, that there will be people here who will look and say, I'm there. I've been asking that question. Lord, give us faith. Give us the trust that we need, that you're in control. You're still working for our good, even though we don't know what it is, even though we get impatient, we get frustrated, even though we think we know better. Help us to just rely on you, to be willing to just let you guide us, take us where you need us. In your name we pray. Amen.